Well, that brings us to the remaining panelists then, not less important. We have Maximilian Lang from Lang Recycling GmbH. So please come on stage and take a seat. We've got Sandra Montes Pérez from ScrapAd and Max Roßdeutscher from tozero. And I'll do a quick introduction. I'll sit on the outside. I'm less important. And we can take a seat wherever you like. We don't have a clear seating order here. So let me do a quick introduction of our panelists today. So Max, you are Managing Director of Gerhard Lang Recycling. It's a family-owned business, family-owned metal recycling company in Gaggenau, so in the south of Germany. And you're also founder of a digital company, Resphere, so very much on the forefront of combining a traditional industry with digitalization. And you started your career in consulting, so you bring pretty much a wide range of experience actually to the table. Sandra Montes Pérez, she is COO and co-founder of ScrapAd. ScrapAd is a digital marketplace for recyclable materials, and you come from an industrial engineering and business administration background, studied in Spain, and you began your career as well as a consultant, but then you moved to Cometal, one of the largest raw materials trading companies actually in Spain, where you were pretty much managing director at the end before you founded ScrapAd. And then we come to Max. So I've got the challenge today that I've got two Max on the panel, so I hope I can manage that. Max Roßdeutscher, he is a business development lead at tozero, a battery recycling company based in Munich, with innovative solutions for recycling batteries, EV batteries from cars, etc. And you have several years of experience actually in B2B, B2C sales, partner management, etc. And you bring also a strong background in digitalization and green tech and scaling startups. Prior to that, you were actually with AWS, correct? Yes. So we bring very much here not only the traditional players to the table, but actually everyone has here also the focus on digitalization. We do an introduction, we do a discussion here, but after that we are opening it up also for questions because it should be an interactive session for everyone. Max.
Yes.
I mean, Gerhard Lang, I read on your website, founded, well, first mentioned, probably the founding date is unclear.
Yes, you're right.
1898. Well, so we're talking about over 120 years of history for your company. So very much a traditional player. You must have seen ups and downs in the company over generations.
Absolutely.
Maybe say a few words to your company, but then if you can take us through what are today's challenges.
Yes.
I mean, compared to the ones in the past, I think we mentioned that we see challenges everywhere. What are the challenges that you see today in the trends?
Okay, thank you, Frank. So a few words about Gerhard Lang Recycling. We are a metal recycling company focused on two pillars. So on the one hand, we focus on recycling of post-production scraps, so scraps that arise in manufacturing processes. And on the other hand, we have a trading business where we buy and sell materials also from other recycling companies. And we are a family-owned mid-sized business with 200 employees. And in the recent years, we've traded between 700 and 800,000 tons of scrap. And what challenges do I see currently? So I think one of the major challenges that we are facing is that scrap will become a scarce resource due to the decarbonization of the steel industry. And let me elaborate on that a bit. So with the decarbonization of the steel industry, blast furnaces will be shut down and mostly replaced by electric arc furnaces. And in these electric arc furnaces, it's technically possible to increase the scrap ratio. And the limiting factor is not the process itself, but rather how many residuals or tramp alloys you can allow. And scrap will be the cheaper alternative to green DRI, so I think the demand will rise. And when we look at the supply side on the other side, so manufacturing scraps supply will rather go down with the industrial production in Germany. And old or end-of-life scrap supply is expected to increase, but often doesn't have the properties so that it can be used in the flat steel production yet. So this is one of our major challenges. How can we supply enough and also suitable scrap for the green steel production in the future?
I mean, we heard this morning, just maybe a follow-up there, export of scrap being restricted, possibly restricted. What's your view on that?
Yes, so currently Germany is a scrap export nation. So we export, I think, to 2024, we exported around about 7 million tons of scrap. So obviously there is kind of a potential of scraps that could be used, but those scraps are currently exported because they're not bought in Germany and because they're not suitable yet. But with advanced processing, it's maybe possible to increase the recovery of suitable scraps from these waste streams. But I don't know if we need a regulation for that, or I think maybe also the markets can arrange it.
Mm. So it's actually a demand issue more than anything else.
Yes.
It's not that we should export or should not export it. It's our industry needs to demand this.
The German scrap recyclers are happy to sell it in Germany as well.
Yeah. Sandra, I mean, you come from the trading background. You founded ScrapAd. Few words maybe in terms of what is ScrapAd doing and why did you found it? What kind of problem are you actually solving?
Okay, thanks, Frank. Okay, so we founded, Samuel and myself founded ScrapAd 2020. We are a pandemic company, and we did it because we both are coming from the recycling industry, and we realized that somehow many other industries, even underground industries like recycling one, were being digitalized and more efficient, but it was not happening same in our industry, considering that it's a huge industry with high value materials. So that's why we thought that we had to make it easy and efficient. So we thought in our first idea was to make it as easy as buying a book on Amazon. So our proposal is to offer a digital tool, a complete digital tool for the recycling industry with a B2B marketplace in which the users can register, get verified, and they can publish their needs for buying or selling. They negotiate by themselves, and then we take care of the complete operative. That it was one of the limits regarding the financing, because it's a very cash-demanding industry. Logistics, and of course with all the legislation and regulation, we take care of all the documents to make it easier for the users, and then when they have the audits and so on, to make it their life easier. So our main challenge right now is, of course, regulation and ups and downs. And also, as we are here in a safe space, the user adoption. I'm very happy to have Max here, like new joiner, and with these new generations in the recycling companies, because are the ones that are the early adopters and push the industry to become renewed.
I imagine there's also an element of the more adoption you have, the more scrap is actually staying within Europe? Or do you see also on your platform, for instance, participants, industries coming actually from outside of Europe, using it actually then to export scrap outside?
Yeah, in our case, it's both. We have our main supply and demand is in Europe, but we also have some suppliers in Latin. Mexico for us is like a natural market. And part of the export, of course, is going to the already mentioned China and also India. But of course, we are pushing to make the supply chain also not only with restrictions, but to make it more efficient, to be able to make the trading in Europe, and also to make it, I push transparency and for the buyers and sellers to be able to know what is the capacity and the availability of materials real time for them to push the transactions in Europe.
Okay. The second Max on stage here. Of course, battery recycling is, in comparison, I'd say, to the traditional metal recycling, slightly different process. It's not only collecting, cleaning, separating, and maybe shredding it. It's actually a chemical process that is in the end of that in order to regain the valuable metals out of the batteries. But when you listen pretty much to the two panelists beforehand, first of all, quick introduction from your side. What is tozero doing? What is the key differentiator maybe to other recyclers?
Sure.
But secondly also, do you see similar challenges for you?
Sure, happy to do so. Thank you, Frank, for the introduction and for the invitation. So tozero was founded 3 years ago by our founders, Sarah and Xenia, and we are recycling lithium-ion batteries for the purpose to bring lithium-ion battery waste to zero. That's also where the name comes from. But looking into like how does the market works. So previously, batteries, also especially lithium-ion batteries, have been first discharged, then dismantled, and then shredded into a black mass. That's how we call it. And this black mass is actually like a mixture of all the materials that is in a battery. One is, of course, lithium. You have graphite, you have cobalt, nickel, and manganese, where we heard also already a speech about that. And in order to recycle that black mass, previously there has been used a pyrometallurgical process. So it says the black mass was smelted actually, and the recovery rate of the raw materials was very bad. And of course also the CO2 footprint not good at all, right? And this main process has been happening in China as well. So all the batteries have been shipped back from Europe to China. But what tozero is doing, we invented a hydrometallurgical process. That means we use a water-based process, and it is indeed a very chemical process, in order to recycle lithium and graphite out of that black mass, and then can sell it and reintegrate it into the economy, for example, the production of lithium-ion batteries or other industries like construction industry, glass, or lubricant industry who also need lithium. And yes, similarities, of course, I think collecting batteries or collecting the scrap itself is one. However, that's not where tozero focuses on, so we jump into where we get the black mass from our providers. So actually like the collecting, the discharging and the dismantling is not part of our process because we see there are quite some good market attendees already. We only want to focus on the chemistry, and this is where maybe also is a differentiation because this hydrometallurgical process is chemistry at its best. And I think that's a good summary of differentiation, but also synergies.
Yeah. I mean, currently, the majority of batteries recycled are probably either from phones or small devices, but actually the big amount that everyone is hoping for is probably coming from cars. Yes. We don't see that yet. I guess the majority of car batteries that are recycled are from production scrap, so not end-of-life scrap.
Yes.
But looking at that, we're probably one of the largest markets in Europe for EV cars.
We are. Yeah.
We are. China is catching up there, but we are. Yet, the recycling capacity is where? In China. Do we even have a chance in terms of economies of scale to establish here recycling from black mass to a refined product again?
I say yes, we have a chance, and we also don't have a choice, to be honest. If you look at the raw numbers, it's frightening what China already built up in terms of capacity in recycling. But if you look into our economical strength in Europe, I say yes, we have a chance, but also we don't have a choice because we don't have much of lithium mines in Europe. I mean, we do have some resources, but as everybody knows here, it's quite tough to extract that in Europe with regulations and economical and ecological conditions. But hence we have no choice to build up a recycling industry in Europe. So saying that when we procure all the lithium-ion batteries from China or rest of the world, it has to stay in Europe. Hence, we have no choice to build up a recycling economy which retains those critical raw materials. Yeah. But I see a lot of potential there. Not only do we have a lot of knowledge about it, so saying we have some universities specializing into that, into recycling, into chemistry. That's where our founder also comes from. But also we have the scalability. That's saying we have the big automotive OEMs who are one of the biggest procurement parties for lithium-ion batteries, and they also have a very big interest in order to de-risk their supply chain, de-risk their dependency from China. So we see a strong pull from the market. So yes, I see a big chance, but also no choice.
Yeah, I guess de-risking is here the key word. The OEMs are looking at that in order to de-risk their supply chain. I mean, Max, we spoke about it in our first discussion over the phone, and you said you see also consolidation actually in the traditional metal industry. Is that also a trend in terms of de-risking for some of the steel manufacturers or metal manufacturers, and how do you stay independent?
Okay. Yeah, so I think there are two drivers behind this consolidation in the metal recycling industry. So from the one side, this development is put forward by recyclers that basically use it as a growth strategy. But I think the point that you were aiming at is that also steel mills have invested in recycling companies to secure their access to scraps. So yeah, I think that this has to do with resilience and getting access to materials of which the steel producers know that they will be scarce in the future.
There are very few newcomers, I think, in your industry. I mean, when we look at the landscape of traditional metal recycling, and I don't want to call them traditional because you have a lot of innovation that you put in place there, but those ones with a long history. But there are some digital newcomers we've seen popping up. They are trading themselves, but they're using, of course, digital tools to source or sell material. Yeah? They are not like you, Sandra, a platform, but more traders themselves. Do you see an impact there already? Is this something that will come more and more as well? Do you need to catch up there as well?
Yes, so I think examples you are aiming at are maybe companies like Metalshub or Medical or others. And I think at the core of their business models, they are still traders. So they are active in the same market and they have the same customers, but they have different operations because they use, for instance, AI tools or online monitoring tools that help manufacturing companies to monitor their scraps that they recycle. I think it puts a bit of pressure of innovation to a very traditional industry, which is good because there is potential to innovate. But I think it's rather an advancement of an existing business model than a complete disruption.
Sandra, I mean, it would have been an easy choice to pivot from being a marketplace to a trader yourself. You haven't done that. Where do you see the scrap industry heading, and where do you see your place in there?
Yeah, comparing the two examples that you mentioned, Metalshub and Metalshub, for example, they are doing very well. But in our case, I'd say that it's a matter of mindset. From the very beginning, we were not trying to become a player in the market, but the market itself. So our proposal comes to offer the service to all these. As an example, we have recyclers, smelters, and even some of these digital competitors operating in our platform. So we are like more independent because we push the market to evolve, but we don't want to be a part of it because our proposal gets farther. Although in the cases, almost in the cases that, for example, the sector comes more aggregated or more integrated or concentrated, we are trying to make like the proper digital tool for these recycling companies or anyone in the recycling industry for find their needs regarding, of course, the counterpart and the information they need for buying and selling. But of course, all these services, like mentioned, the finance, also logistics in scrap is not easy. It's really specific. So we are offering the full service to act as an enabler of the market. That it's something that related with this conversation. It seems that we are trying to like crash the market, and it's not the idea. It's quite the opposite. We want to be helping the recycling company to make it better and more efficient.
So actually also a measure against this consolidation trend that we see in the industry, because I guess consolidation is always bad for platforms, because if the smart market in general gets smaller, then the open marketplaces have a smaller role to play. Max, maybe back to you there. Where do you see the role of platforms going forward?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I guess that the kind of materials that are traded on your platform are maybe spot deals, because I think that is one niche where I think that platforms could be successful. So when you have a material and you just want to sell it at the best price, like one purchase basically, where I do not see platforms yet is for organizing strategic scrap supplies, for instance, from manufacturing companies who have their own software basically to sell the materials, and also there's a very complex and long contract negotiation process behind and all of that. So I rather see it in the spot market.
Yeah, we combine both. Of course, our like sweet spot is spot market. Yep. But we also have like recurrent contracts for this material that comes absolutely like clean, and it's possible to go end to end, because of course we know and appreciate very much the added value of the recyclers in sorting and separation, crushing, and so on. So I think it's a different proposal, and the recurrency on us is just for these materials that are able to go from the generator to the smelter, not for the others.
Max, we discussed the role of platforms. I would have loved to have Henry here as well, because then he's got already in this new industry of recycled materials or battery recycling some experience there. But I know you are, we had a number of discussions and you're open to those ideas as well. I think one of the key elements is, of course, transparency, price setting, etc. Where do you see the role of platforms for your industry?
I think, Frank, you already mentioned it's connected also to the transparency in the market. Yeah, so I think platforms, you can have like a 360-degree view on it. So platforms can be in terms of trading, or simply vertical integration into your supply chain. So saying like, okay, where do you procure, for example, the battery recycling your black mass from, and also visibility there, traceability in your supply chain, like where does the black mass come from, what's the content of it, what's the quality of it, kind of similar to the battery passport, like a black mass passport. But then it's also about trading, like looking forward to where are your customers, like where do you sell your lithium, your recycled lithium, your recycled graphite, or then the recycled green mass, so the remainings of nickel, cobalt, and manganese, where do you sell it to? And then, of course, as well, the prices, price transparency, either on the procurement side, but also on the lithium side, where it's not really given today. And then there's also another digital platform possibility in terms of manufacturing. But this is something where our industry is very early stage on, where you can also apply, we also heard it in the speech before, AI in order to improve production processes and also maybe connect to your procurement parties.
You mentioned pricing transparency, price setting. Let's be honest, in batteries, battery recycling, black mass, lithium, etc., all the products that you ultimately produce, all the prices are set in China. Nothing is set in Europe. Do we need to establish European pricing?
Yes, we need. Also, especially if you look at, the current lithium price is very low. I already had a good discussion with another company being present here about lithium price. It's very low since quite some months. And of course, that's also harming the industry in Europe and also the chances of Europe to create its own battery value chain. We've seen it with Northvolt. It's a pity that they couldn't survive. But price was one topic, knowledge is another topic. But again, transparency is important on pricing. It's important that Europe creates its own prices because also, what is price, right? It's not only like the cost of production, it's also transportation, and I think it's also like de-risking, and we already discussed it, Like what's it worth for European manufacturers, either of automotives or batteries, to have like a local produced or recycled lithium, so I think that also counts into the price, which is not reflected in the market price.
Yeah, it's probably the question of green premiums. Should we see green premiums for recycled products?
No. I don't think we will see green premiums because the price of lithium is just too low, that companies are eager to pay one, and especially like big corporates, whether it's the manufacturing, the automotive OEMs, or battery manufacturers and battery manufacturers are mainly located in China. Of course, they don't pay any green premium at all. But automotive manufacturing, they might be willing, but that's also not our goal. So our goal, and I think I can also speak on behalf of the battery recycling industry, as well as our competitors, we are not aiming for green premium. We want to even offer the normal lithium price. That's our goal. It has to be a profitable business. Else, if you're dependent on a green premium, it's kind of like a small construct you're leaning on. So I think it's important to not have a green premium, and also we see that industries not open to pay that green premium. There might be a different opinion if you look at smaller companies like SMB business. Of course, not only you need lithium for battery manufacturing, but also for the construction industry, for the glass industry or lubrication industry. And there you have SMB parties who kind of have a dependency on big volume purchases, and so they have to procure once a year or even for 2 years in order to get lithium from the traders, and they pay way higher price, and they might be open to say, okay, in order to have a more frequent delivery, we also might be open to pay a higher price.
I guess green premiums, probably in the metal recycling space, you've always been green.
Yes.
98% of all steel is recycled.
Yes.
So from that perspective, there's no such thing as a green premium. But you mentioned you see more increased demand. Isn't that almost like a green premium then for scrap?
Yes, you're right. That's kind of like a premium for scrap when the demand increases. And with regard to recycling rates, we've already ticked the box in the metal recycling industry. But maybe also not fully yet, because of course all the metals are recycled, but I think what could be more an issue in the future is that recycling also in the steel industry could happen more within certain steel grades. So maybe it becomes more important to recycle the steel scrap of the same grade category. So this will allow a more efficient use of the scraps to avoid downcycling between different steel categories.
Sandra, do you see on your platform activities that people are choosing specific recycled material over others, where maybe the traceability or where there's more transparency in terms of where it comes from, what the source of the material is, and so on? Is that already a trend, or are we still too early actually on that side?
Yeah, we see that it is coming. We have some requests on that, but to be honest, this proposal is coming from like large industries that have quite ESG pressure, but it's not still a standard in the industry. It's true that, for example, more and more, even small companies are requesting more data, documents, more traceability. So I think that with time it will come. But in our case, at least in mainly non-ferrous, is not still the standard. It will come.
Yeah, and I guess that's also one of the elements of backward integration that we sometimes see, because then companies control very much everything from the start to the end. Yeah. But I think backward integration doesn't necessarily mean that you are more efficient. It just means that you have a bit more control over your supply chain there.
in supply, in price, of course, but also more and more in sustainability issues. Yeah.
Max, do you see a trend actually in the battery industry in terms of backward integration, that OEMs are also moving into battery recycling themselves? So becoming competitors actually of yourself?
So we see a lot of different players in the market. That means you have the kind of like battery value chain from mining into refining, into cathode material production, into cell production, battery production, and then it gets in the car, right? So it's a huge, long process in the battery value chain. And there we see many different players sticking into like cell production and then battery package production, players who stay in their refining business or mining business. But then we also say, and usually that comes from the automotive OEMs, they kind of want to integrate backwards, like not only sell cars, but also want to sell batteries. We see this a lot in China, of course, but we are also seeing now European OEMs who want to build up expertise and have like a more influence on battery production. So yes and no. There are attempts, there is effort to integrate more, but also to influence more, especially when it comes to recycling. We have the Critical Raw Material Act in Europe, where automotive suppliers have an interest in just keeping like raw materials in Europe. But also in our industry, we see some consolidations, not so much, but rather like only the strongs or the profitable companies, they survive. So just mention Northvolt, right? Very, very pity, one of the only battery manufacturers in Europe did not survive. But also in our recycling industry, we see already some bankruptcies where we see, it was not a profitable business. So this is why, as well for tozero, one of our major goals is also to become profitable as fast as possible, so that there is no consolidation in the early days, because especially like the sustainable recycling of batteries is still in its early stage.
I mean, I look at the key challenges actually that people voted for, or the audience talked about. I mean, regulation being one topic. I see also clean scrap, contamination, scrap sources. Maybe a question there, like clean scrap, is that an issue in metal recycling? To what extent is it an issue?
To clean the scrap, or I mean, I think the technology to process the scrap is basically available. So I think we have very advanced technologies, also nowadays very advanced shredding processes, also to clean or refine end-of-life scraps. I think the big question here is, are we able and are we willing to afford this, because this costs more money? So at the end, I think it boils down to the question of the costs associated with it.
And the question of whether that gives you then the advantage in the later production process, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I guess from a platform perspective, this is something that is music to your ears, because if you can actually guarantee traceability, sources, certificates, etc., that must be something where you can contribute to that.
For sure, yeah. It's something that, of course, we work with both kind of scrap, clean, and also scrap that after needs to be like processed with different technologies. And of course, we offer the traceability of the material, whether it's coming from the industry itself, from automotive, that it's also a reality of scrap that is coming clean. And it's something that I wouldn't say avoidable, but it must be more efficient, and also for the end-of-life material of cars, windows, or whatever. So in metals, we work with both under traceability.
I guess AI could play a role, sorting.
Yes, I mean, also we in our company have a sorting machine for aluminium, for instance, and there also AI comes into play to detect. It's kind of a visual detection, whether it's one or two parts overlaying and all of that. So that's an example for kind of a niche utilization of AI in our field. I think AI could also maybe be used for grading materials visually, but that will not be sufficient. That will not be the whole solution. I think we still need our laboratories. We still need spectral analysis to determine the precise alloy that we're actually recycling. So I think there are some applications, but I don't expect a big change because of AI.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I know from discussions with other battery recyclers, contamination of black mass, or actually what you get there, is an issue.
Yes, it's a black box.
Even if you have a lab certificate, it is not something that guarantees automatically that you get what you ordered, right?
Exactly, and that's the reason why there are also like quite some shredders out there, and where a quality of black mass will be a topic in the future. However, our goal is to have like a process that can take any kind of black mass and recycle lithium and graphite out of it. Of course, there's still like some general standard requirements, for example, the particle size and of course the main ingredients of batteries. But in general, we aim to have like an agnostic battery recycling process for any kind of battery.
Yeah. So flexibility is key.
Yes.
Before we come to questions, and you can already start posting your questions, I do a quick round of everyone. What do you see in the future? What is your wish in terms of regulation or for the market to happen actually for the next years?
Yes, my wish in terms of regulation, I don't need more regulation of our recycling industry, but I think that's not a surprise for you maybe. So rather to build the right regulatory conditions also for the steel industry and for the green steel production to be successful, because when our customers are successful, then we can be successful. So I think that's a big wish that I have for the future.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Max.
Okay, in my case, of course, I visualize the industry as a digital industry, and also considering that the material will be traveling together with data. And buyers, the criteria we were talking before, will change and won't be only just the price, but other KPIs that we mentioned before. And according to regulation, I would ask to be at least more, not more, and more standard, because now we have different rules, even some materials, depending where, are waste or recyclable materials. So we would need a standard to be able to have digital-friendly regulation, and that's it. Now, I think that we have the technology, so we have to have the ambition to make it possible.
Mm-hmm. Max, what's your wish for the future, and where do we end up in 10 years' time?
I really like that question. It feels like Christmas, you know, you can wish something. I think there are two main topics we as battery recycling industry in Europe would wish for the future. First is, of course, that there will be a battery value chain established in Europe. And that means we have battery producers in Europe in the future, but also we have cathode material producers. Because at the moment when we recycle our lithium out of the black mass, it still has to go back to China because they are like the biggest and the only cathode material producers in the world. Yeah? So independency and own battery value chain in Europe established, that is like my number one wish. And the second is, I think each of you here can sing a song about regulation, and also when it comes to building up a production facility. Yeah? You have a lot of regulations there because it's materials, maybe hazardous materials, and also for us. And now imagine us, like we are a startup of 30 people. We are already planning several production recycling facilities. We also have to go through this whole regulation forest, and we have this very long regulation applications in order to build such recycling facilities. And as a startup, these kind of long processes to go through the permits can be quite not only challenging, but also in terms of cash flow and survival of the company. We don't see like big issue there because our investors know about these long permit approval processes, but it is hindering the startup environment, and it is hindering us in the battery recycling industry to establish like a value chain.
Thank you. Well, let's open it up for questions. I can see there's one there, but I think that's an interesting question to you, Max, here. Mm-hmm. What can the incumbent metal recycling industry learn from the emerging battery recycling industry?
Yeah, that's an interesting but also a tough question, I think. So what can we learn? I think there are maybe some parallels with regards to the industries, because it both has to do something with securing materials that are not sufficiently available. There are also differences because your market is rapidly growing other than our market. Maybe we can learn something from the processing technologies used yet, but I don't see it in a precise example right now.
I think I'm taking one question that is, what part of the recycling value chain would benefit the most from digitalization? And where do you see most of the opaqueness? I think that, Sandra, that is almost a penalty shot for you.
Yeah, I'd say that the benefit, of course, is for both supply and demand, but from different points of view, value proposition. It's true that it's pulled by normally from the buyers. Usually are like bigger companies that are more used to tools. Maybe they don't have, or they don't use a marketplace itself. But they have ERP, CRM, so they are used to digitize their processes and to give their information to any kind of system. So they are normally more open, and they use, in this case, ScrapAd as a hub for their supply and for having this procurement and documents regarding their standard. But also, the supply side normally is more closed, or it's more difficult to get to, because it seems that they are more close to open like their source, their prices, because sometimes it seems that they receive our proposal as a competitor, but of course we are coming to enable the transactions and to make also their life easier, because the alternative normally is two. One, they continue, like they keep working with the known parts as always, or they have to work in a very tough process of traveling, directories. Also, unfortunately, fraud was actively present in the industry, so they take many risks if they want to make something different. So our main challenge is to make this supply side safe, to feel safe with the proposal, and also with the support of the demand, it will be coming.
Building trust is key.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that is true for your products, for your sources, but also for platforms, ultimately. There was a question from the audience. Do you have a microphone already? Yes, you do.
I do. Is it on? Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. This question goes to Max Roßdeutscher. You mentioned China, right? I mean, it's the biggest producer of anodes and cathodes. And the overall sentiment from China buying from the West, the spodumene, the hydroxide is very good. But what about the sentiment of buying that recycled material that you guys will eventually produce, going towards China? I mean, there's still, and there will still be bigger producers. Do you see a positive sentiment? Do you see perhaps some challenges being the material recycled? What is your take on that?
Very good question. And yes, if you look at the battery value chain, the cathode and anode material producers, they need, especially the cathode producers, they need lithium and graphite. So yes, they might also as well buy from European recyclers, even from us, because in Europe there's at the moment no big cathode material producer, so they will procure from Europe. And we have the Critical Raw Material Act. That means for European batteries or cars, they need to be recycled lithium in there. So we see also an interest of Chinese cathode material producers, CAM or anode material producers, that they have an interest into settling over to Europe. And I think this is a big chance for European entrepreneurs, maybe to even like found startups in the cathode material production. Because at the moment Europe does not have one, and we see a rising need for that. But also Europe lacks knowledge in that area, which is why we have this big market power of China. Thank you.
Picking up a question actually on talent and people. I assume, Max, you have zero issues finding talent actually and finding people for your industry, because this is in everyone's on top of the mind.
Yes and no, actually.
Okay.
So
yes.
no, we don't have a challenge in hiring people. We see big interest. I mean, it's deep tech technology. It's a green tech topic, right? And nearly everybody wants to change the world nowadays, right? So yes, we don't need to do big HR recruiting marketing for that. It's a big advantage. At the same time, we have the privilege that our candidates come from across the world. That means we like our process what we're using, it's hydrometallurgy, it's relatively new. In Germany we have some institutes specialized in that, but we see a big demand from global markets. So our company as well, like we are 30 people at the moment, and only 30% comes from Germany, 60% is from out of Germany. This is great. So we don't have any issues with diversity at all. And the good thing is as well, we really we see that you have global people coming together to solve one of humankind's issues when it comes in terms to sustainability. So no, we don't have a big issue at all. But still, there could be way more interest in the industry.
Max, same for you. I mean, you are the next generation,
yes.
and there's a generation change probably. First of all, is the next generation ready to take over? And number two, do you still find talent?
Yes, so to the first part of your question, there is a generational change in the whole industry. I think the overall age average is still quite high, so we have to deal with a lot of people that are much older than me, and a lot of people still from the boomer generation in important positions. With regard to finding talents, we are in a lucky position that we have, I think, quite a good standing within our industry, and the industry is not that big, so we also receive a lot of proactive applications from people within the industry, so that works. And with regard to people from blue-collar jobs, the situation has also already changed a bit because of the industrial development at the moment, so there are more people on the market, so it's not as tough as you might have expected. Yeah,
but I guess it's also making sure that you are perceived as not only, I mean, it says somebody perceived as dirty, I think that's one element, but the other thing is also perceived as being modern.
Yes.
And I guess you're the prime example for being perceived as modern, bringing in new technologies, digitalization, founding also a tool there. Maybe to the audience, how important is that for talents, not only the clean aspect, but actually being perceived as modern?
I think that's very important, especially for young applicants, because I think they perceive that people can actually change something, because we have a lot of innovative projects going on where people can have actually the possibility to change something. So yeah, I think that's quite important, and also the sustainability aspect plays a role. So within the recent years, we have also more often received applications where people explicitly stated that they wanted to do something meaningful and something sustainable. So that's an effect that has actually increased over the last years.
I'm looking at the time. Maybe one last question to you, Sandra. We talked about regulation, less regulation, not more regulation. You will also have some internal regulation, but also how do you see the topic of regulation? Is that something that would help you with your business? Is that something that you would rather like not to see? And how do you regulate yourself? How do you regulate your suppliers on the platform? Who's allowed to be there and not?
Yeah, we think that for us is something that we have to live with. So it's the reality. So we try to see it as an opportunity, because we offer the possibility in the platform for the users to be able to negotiate with the countries, materials, kind of material that is already allowed to do it globally. So it's something that we have a screening of the complete regulation, and we charge it to the platform, into the platform, so we make the security and give the security to the users that they are making transactions that meet regulation and with the needed standards. And regarding the quality of the suppliers, we have like different processes before they can start negotiating. First, when they register, they have to go through a KYC process for verification, and also with the fintech partner, we verify the financial statements. That's on the company itself. And then, of course, we have a complete loading report with all the material before the supplier is being paid. So we are very careful on that, because we know that security is key for the platform, for being trustable to our customers now and, of course, in the coming future.
Yeah. So trust is key.
Yes.
I think that's something that we all share. Ultimately, your customers need to trust you, that you're delivering the right raw materials. Your users, your customers need to trust you that you actually have a functioning ecosystem. And again, the same here. Your customers need to trust you with your products as well. I think we had an interesting panel and a lively discussion. Thank you very much for your participation today. I hope it was also interesting for the audience, judging from the amount of questions it was. And thank you very much. Now, a couple of things before we